The Joe Rogan Experience.
Tell me about your new movie. Let's leave it at
that. It's called Motherless Brooklyn. It was kind of a big swing because I wrote it and I produced it. And
is this the first time you've done that?
Directed it. I produced and directed the first movie I directed is Keeping the Faith with it's me and Ben Stiller play a rabbi and a priest who are best friends, and they both fall for the same girl. Did you ever see that one?
No, I didn't.
It's funny. Yeah, you'd like it. Ben is hilarious in it. That was obviously lighter. That was a lighter kind of movie, but it was in. I've lived in New York almost 30 years, and I like making movies in New York a lot. That was a pretty light one. This one is more. This takes place in the 50s in New York, and it's kind of. It's got a Chinatown, LA Confidential kind of a noir bent to it. It's a mystery, a murder mystery of kind of that leads into some of the stuff that happened in New York in the 50s that is hard to believe because New York was run by it was run by basically a Darth Vader-like figure who was never elected to public office, and people thought he was the Parks Commissioner of New York, but he was from 1930 to 1968 he had uncontested authoritarian power over New York City and New York State, and he made every significant decision about the way that the modern infrastructure of New York was built, where the roads went, where the bridges were built, what was torn down, where the projects were built. And he was very racist, and he baked like really discriminatory things that almost sound like conspiracy theory. They're so wild and intense into the decisions he made. He was responsible for the Dodgers leaving Brooklyn and going to L.A., and nobody knows this. Like you think of New York as that's like the great egalitarian melting pot city where democracy works, except that it was run by a total autocrat.
For 38 years?
Yeah, he's largely, it's broadly accepted that no mayor or governor of New York could do a single thing without his say-so from basically about 1930 to about 1968.
How is that even possible?
Yeah.
And how come no one knows about this? How did you find out?
People do. There's huge, like in one of the big Burns Brothers documentaries about New York, there's literally almost a whole episode on him. There's a great book about him that won the Pulitzer Prize, and there's his name was Robert Moses, and there's Robert Moses State Beach in New York, but literally people think he was the Parks Commissioner, but he was like Anakin Skywalker. He was like a Jedi Knight. He was a big liberal, progressive believer in progressive change and government reform, and in his early years he got crushed by Tammany Hall and the power brokers, and he went dark, went completely. Yeah, that's not the most imposing picture of him that you've got up. There's other ones.
That's an imposing
Find one of the
picture.
ones of him. Find one of the ones of him standing in front of his models. There's famous ones of him.
That looks like a man of will.
Yeah, actually, to the left of that, and keep going to the left of that, because there's a scene in our movie where Alec Baldwin is literally like that. Yeah, Alec Baldwin essentially plays a character who's based on him. Inspired by him, I should say. It's not at all, in my film, it's not the true story. But yeah, there you go. But I think this idea, I was really interested in this idea. You know, what's great about Chinatown as a film is it's mostly sexy. You don't know what the hell is going on in that movie. Like, until 20 minutes before the end, you have absolutely no idea really what's going on in that movie. But it's just sexy. It's like, the music is amazing. The photography's incredible. The actors are like adult and real, and he's Nicholson, right? The hook is like Nicholson is so cool. You really will kind of follow him. You'll watch the way he deals with anything, and you're just laughing and enjoying it, right? But underneath it all, when you're done, you go, is that true? Is LA basically built on stolen water? Is that like LA's original sin, is that people made fortunes? The valley was just farms, and they stole the water from up north and, rigged the game and made these gigantic fortunes by irrigating San Fernando Valley. And you come away with an awareness that like the California story is not exactly what it's cracked up to be, right? There's some big crimes underneath it, and the people who and that in that movie, it's like, yeah, the people ripped everybody off, they faked droughts, they created fortunes themselves, and the type of people who did that also raped their daughters. Literally, that's like what that movie is about. It's and it's pretty bleak. It's like you can't make a difference. You cannot change anything. Like, and if you try, the person you're trying to help is going to end up with a bullet through her eye, dead on the steering wheel. Like, it's a really dark movie, and people forget that because you just go, oh, Nicholson, Faye Dunaway. It's like, nah, that's a really, really bleak movie. But I love the idea that you can do things where like the pleasure of it is like the pleasure of movies. It's grown up. It's kind of what we've been talking about. It's like if you said to most people, if you showed Chinatown to most critics today, they'd go long, boring, whatever. It's like you want to say fuck off. Like fuck off. Like what is it that why are you assuming people can't handle grown up? You know what I mean? And I think that I really dig those things where you go through, the movie starts, you look at it and you go, this looks really good. This looks really grown up. This is big. The actors are like adult and authoritative. The dialogue's great. The music is great. It's hypnotic. And your brain just goes, I don't know what's going on. I don't care. I'm bought in. And if there's a character in it that you can hook into, you float through those movies. You just kind of go, where's this going? What's going on? Oh man, that guy, she's great. He's great. Wow, like this is just all juicy and great. And by the end, you get somewhere and you kind of go, I'll be damned. That actually was about big things. Did those things really happen? You know, I really dig those movies. I dig Chinatown, L.A. Confidential. I think The Godfather works that way. The Godfather is about immigrants. You know, it's about immigrants normalizing in America. You don't. It's like that's a long movie.
Yeah.
You just settle in for that movie.
Right.
Your brain settles in and just goes, this just couldn't be better. I couldn't be happier to be watching this scene after scene after scene. I wanted to try to make one of those. You know, myself. Like I wanted to try to make one of those because I don't. It's a cliche to say like they don't make those anymore, but
right.
But I think they were always hard. It's not like they were easy once and now they're hard. They were always hard. But I would look at people like Warren Beatty. He made Reds, which is one of the great movies from that era. Even like Spike Lee doing Do the Right Thing. I don't know if you remember when that movie hit.
Sure.
It was massive. It was a huge deal to me. I was like 18 or 19.
Yeah.
I saw that movie and I was like, he just rewrote the game. Like this kid, who the hell is it? He wrote it, he directed it, he acted in it, he got Public Enemy to do the music.
Yeah.
It's about his neighborhood in New York, but it's about like race in America. It's like, oh my God, that guy just took like a huge swing and connected on like every level. And it didn't even give you some BS kind of like, don't worry, it's going to be okay in the end.
Right.
It was like, Martin Luther King says violence is not the way. Malcolm X says sometimes it's the only rational response. What do you think? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was so ballsy. It was so ballsy, that movie. And I think like after a while, it's sort of like I just started feeling like, well, I don't really need to gig. I might as well. I've worked with a lot of great people. I've worked with some pretty great directors, including Spike. And I was kind of like, I've been in New York a long time, and I just thought it was really weird no one knew that story. And I was like, I'm going to try to make one about this,